We live in a frenetic, fast-paced world. And for some of us, we'd really like it to slow down, but we just can't. And this is when I've found rest to actually be essential. But what does rest look like for a busy person? Jesus has promised us, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." I'm a busy mom of 5 myself, and sometimes it feels like the only way I can actually rest is to get on my phone. I'll put on an audiobook or a podcast while I'm doing some monotonous task, or scroll on my phone when it's finally quiet at the end of the day. But have you ever noticed that while you're hoping to find rest while you do this, you never actually feel rejuvenated after you're done? In our modern world, we look for modern solutions. But maybe the solution to our modern problems is ancient solutions. When God created the earth, He rested on the 7th day. The Sabbath was set apart so we could finally rest from our efforts from the entire week. A day where you can say no to soccer games, errands, projects. A day where you can simply worship and rest. Doesn't that sound amazing? It is amazing. I have been blessed to be able to practice Sabbath my entire life. And on the days that, for whatever reason, we're not able to actually practice Sabbath during our week, you can really tell the difference. In addition to Sabbath, Jesus also withdrew to quiet places. It says in Luke that Jesus withdrew himself to the wilderness and prayed. In our church, we have a special place just for withdrawing from the world, the temple. Here is a quiet and beautiful place where you can feel very close to God and away from the busyness of the world. When I leave the temple, I feel rejuvenated and restored. Maybe you don't have a temple, but you could create a space in your home or a place in nature where you can retreat and commune with God. And don't feel like you need to overhaul your entire life to make this happen. While I would love to be able to go to the temple more often, I often only make it once a month. Even a once-a-month ritual can change your life. So it's important to take big breaks, like a Sabbath day or a monthly temple habit. But what about the day-to-day? Isn't doing something for yourself, scrolling and watching whatever you want to watch, actually doing some good for you? It is good to do something for yourself. And I'm not anti-scrolling, but I think scrolling might not be as restful as you think it is. I've learned something recently that really made me rethink using my phone to rest. The thing with scrolling is that physically it looks like rest. You're sitting still, you've stopped working, your body's on the couch, but your brain is still completely active. And there's actually science to show why it's so mentally exhausting. Scientists like Andrew Huberman talk about how dopamine is associated with novelty and reward seeking. Scrolling gives us constant novelty. Every swipe contains uncertainty. Your brain keeps waiting the next interesting thing. And social media platforms are intentionally designed around what psychologists call variable rewards. It's the same technology they use in slot machines. You never know when you're going to find a funny post, something emotional, something shocking, or something validating. So your brain constantly stays engaged and seeking. What's difficult is that this can feel restful in the moment because it distracts us from stress. But escape and rest are not always the same thing. Real rest usually lowers stimulation. It allows your nervous system to settle. It creates quiet, space, and stillness. Scrolling often does the opposite. Even though we're sitting still physically, mentally we're still consuming, reacting, evaluating, comparing, and processing non-stop information. There's also research showing that when our brain has quiet moments, like walking or reflecting or praying, something called the default mode network switches on. And this is the part of the brain that's associated with creativity, memory making, reflection, and creating meaning. So if you're never allowing your brain to have this process unfold, then you're missing out on these essential things that your brain and body need. In the book Rest by Alex Pang, he states that rest is not simply doing nothing, but it's something deeply restorative that improves your brain, body, creativity, and emotional well-being. Historically, boredom and quiet gave us the space to think deeply, complete silence while you're hoeing the field, total and utter boredom where your mind can do nothing but wander. Now, our boredom lasts about 3 seconds until we reach for our phones. I think many of us are living with minds that never really have a chance to fully exhale. So it got me thinking, how did people rest before digital distraction existed? Even some of history's most productive and intellectually demanding people understood that deliberate rest was essential. Rosalind Franklin, she was famous for uncovering the structure of the double helix. She's famous for also being an avid mountaineer. Winston Churchill was famous for taking 2-hour naps every single day, even in the height of the war. And Charles Dickens famously walked 10 miles every day and still managed to create masterpieces of novels. In short, the way that people rested before the digital age wasn't wasting time. It was actually more deliberate. Silence wasn't something to be solved, it was a respite from our work. But it wasn't just the elites who made rest a priority. It was just built into the rhythms of the day. People used to spend evenings sitting on front porches. Homes didn't have air conditioning, so families would gather on the front porch in the evenings. Neighbors talked, children laughed and played in the yard. People rocked in their chairs and watched the storm roll in. They listened to the crickets. They literally just watched as the sun set because there was nothing else to do. So sometimes rest might mean spending more time with people. Rest used to happen in the presence of an ordinary life. It was just a normal part of the day, and people saw the value in it. They didn't see it as doing nothing. People also walked more, but not power walks with your watch going to see how fast you're going and your headphones in, focused on beating your time from yesterday. Just walks to enjoy the beautiful world that we live in. Even their daily rhythms provided rest. Gardening, baking bread, sewing by hand, shelling peas, folding the laundry. These tasks occupied the hands while leaving room for reflection, conversation, and prayer. And modern life has removed so many of these rhythms. But I think one of the biggest differences is that historically, rest was often connected to spiritual life. People practiced Sabbath. They paused and prayed and ate together at regular times throughout the day. Rest wasn't just taking a break from work. It was reconnecting with God, with your family, with your community, and with the world. Rest involved presence, being all here, all in, right now, in this moment. And I think many of us are starving for that kind of rest right now. We are literally starving our brains from something it desperately needs to function properly. So lately I've been taking a look at where I can put more rest into my life, so I can be more restored to do the things I need to do and to be present with my family and my kids and my spouse. I want to make rest more of an intentional part of my life because unfortunately our lives are no longer set up with rhythms of rest built in. So I've been trying something, not in an anti-technology way, not in some perfect, never miss type of way. I'm just trying to be more deliberate in creating rest and space in my brain. The other day, I needed to plant my garden, and typically what I would do is I would turn on an audiobook or a podcast because I knew it was going to take a while and it was going to be monotonous, and adding in a book or something enjoyable makes the task go by faster. But I remembered that I'm trying to rest more intentionally to allow my brain space to wander and to daydream. And so instead, I didn't bring anything to listen to. I did the whole task in silence. I was amazed how focused I was, how present I felt, how in the moment I felt. And I literally felt the difference when I went in hours later. Sometimes on these lazy summer mornings, I'll start the day by scrolling on my phone, just to have a few minutes to myself before the kids wake up. But I've been thinking about trying to be more intentional with my rest, giving my brain more space for quiet and peace. And I find that when I'm not scrolling, I'm more likely to do some of those habits that are really important to me, like making time for scripture study and prayer. I'm not suggesting we need to get rid of our phones or cut off all of social media, but I've been considering how I can make a deliberate choice to rest, rather than the ineffective way that I've been trying to rest currently on my phone. For most of human history, people didn't spend every spare waking moment taking in endless streams of information. There were natural pauses built into life. And maybe some of those slower rhythms shouldn't be as low on the priority list as we nowadays put them. Maybe they were protecting something deeply human. Because maybe the reason some of us feel so mentally exhausted all the time isn't just because we're so busy. Maybe it's because our minds don't get to have experiences of everyday stillness anymore. And maybe real rest begins when we stop filling every quiet moment with noise and allow God to fill up that space and restore our souls. I love talking about this with you today. If you want to continue this conversation, be sure to check out my previous video where I talked about memorizing scripture, helping to quiet our minds. And I hope to see you again on the next one.